Alrighty, in this demo, I'm going to show you how to add a raised graphic to a garment. So first, we should set up our CLO document. So I'm going to grab an avatar by going to my library up here, top right, blue icon, and make sure you're in the CLO tab, not CLO set, not connect, and not in any library that you've added. You've got to go to CLO, avatar, and now you can add any avatar. I'm just going to work with the male avatars today. I'm going to just hit no. I was working in CLO earlier, so it was asking me something. So just double click to add your avatar to the workspace. This should be just a quick review. I'm done with my library for now. Modular library. For this assignment, you do not need to work with a garment from scratch. So I encourage you to use the modular library or use a garment from WGSN, anywhere you'd like. We're going to be, since I am working with the male avatars, I need to be in the male folder here, the men. And I'm just going to add some bottoms. And I'm just left clicking to add my back pant, left click, double click to add my waistband. I'm going to hit spacebar to just clean up this 3D window situation. All right. I'm going to stop simulation. Before I add a top, I'm just going to move this guy over. So I'm just selecting this because when I add my top pieces, they may add right on top of my pant pieces, and I just want them to be easily selectable. Remember, when we add pieces from the modular library, it adds every pattern piece onto its own separate fabric. So what I want to do is put all of these into one fabric, not 3 different ones. And let me just delete these. So your screen might look something like this. We're going to select them. We're going to assign to selected patterns. So that's just combining all these pattern pieces onto one fabric. Since everything is in fabric 1 or cut in fabric 1, that gives me the option to delete the other fabric entries I'm not using. So just click the little trash can icon. And all this does is reduce how big your file is and how slow your file is. So I want to change this just so I know what is what. I'm going to call this pant. In order to edit it, you need to select it here, and you could double click on the name, or you could change it in the property editor, whichever you like. Now I'm going to go back and add a top. So I'm going to use a basic shirt just because I don't want to plaque it on the garment. And let me just add raglan. Again, you can use any avatar, any garment. I'm just double clicking to add my top pieces. Left click to add the collar. All right, so now I've got my top pieces, same idea. I'm going to drag a box over all of my top pieces to select them. And I'm just going to assign to the first fabric entry here. It doesn't matter what it is because we're going to change the name. Delete your extras. So now nice and organized. I'm double clicking on the name here. We're going to call this top. All right, so now we've got our top fabric as a separate fabric from the pant fabric. This is a little messy, so let's clean this up. So let's select our top. Now I've got my property editor where I can make adjustments for my top pieces. So I'm just gonna go down. You'll see the blue simulation properties header. Layer. I'm going to call this 1. Enter. And this is just saying that this is a temporary status Once you get the simulation how you like it, change it back to 0. That's all this is saying. So just hit OK. I'm going to hit simulation. And all this does is tell CLO that we want this garment in green to be on top of anything that's beneath it. So, and it just really makes it super simple. So once that's done and kind of not moving anymore, that means your simulation's stable. I'm going to hit stop simulation by pressing the space bar. And then I'm going to go back to layer. Everything's still selected, so I could just go ahead and edit this right here. 0, enter. So now we have a clean starting document. I'm going to minimize my modular library by clicking this little arrow here. And I'm just going to go File, Save Project. I've already named mine, so you might get a box that's asking you to name it and where you want to save it. So go ahead and do that. All right, so we've got our starting garment. Now we need to grab a simple graphic or logo from a source of your choice. For your graphic, you can use your brand's logo if you have one. You can use a placeholder logo. You can go on Adobe stock.adobe.com and download some images, like, you know, anything. Let's see, flower icon. I always add icon when I'm searching for a graphic to use for this assignment, just because I know it's going to give me a really simple graphic. So you can pick anything. If you're comfortable with Illustrator or Photoshop, you can use something like this, which is many graphics on one file. Otherwise, I would just keep it simple and stick to a simple singular graphic. Okay. You know, anything, whatever you want. So you just hit download, and you want to download a JPEG or a PNG. So I would start with a JPEG, and I will show you how to turn that into a PNG. All right, so download whatever icon you want, whatever graphic you want. And for me, I've downloaded some different logos, messing around with things. So I'm going to open up one of my logos that I downloaded. I was on the Nike website and they have some logos that you can download. So I'm just going to grab this logo here. All right, so I've got my logo. In order to work with our logo here, we need to activate this layer. So I want to make sure, just because maybe you've been working in Photoshop earlier, we all are maybe starting with different Photoshop screens, go ahead and just reset your Photoshop workspace by clicking this little white arrow at the top right. This is your little workspace icon, and just go make sure you have Essentials clicked and then reset Essentials. Really, we're only going to be working in the layers panel, but just so that we all have kind of a same workspace. That way our toolbars are consistent. And so now there are a couple of ways to activate this layer. You can right click, layer from background, or just double click, left click. So this will be new layer, and I'm going to call this original. I would call this original. I think they call this the Jumpman logo. And hit OK. Just so I know that this is my starting icon. So I'm going to make a copy of this by right clicking, and you got to right click. You can right click anywhere on this bar here. So I'm just going to right click in kind of this blank space, and I'm going to duplicate layer. And I'm going to call this original. I'm going to call this Jumpman. Oops. Jumpman graphic. Oops. Okay. Okay, so in order to use this as a graphic, I need to isolate the icon from the background. And the way I'm going to do that is by using my magic wand tool. So that looks like this little, it looks just like you might expect, a little magic wand, magical little stars. If you left click and hold, if it lets you, you'll see that there's actually several tools inside that bucket. So if you don't see the magic wand, press W on your keyboard. I'm just going to hit OK. And that'll highlight it. So you might have been in the selection tool, the move tool, shortcut V. So if you press W, now your magic wand tool is selected. And if I left click and hold, these might be other tools that you're more comfortable using. Use whichever one you're the best with. So for me, that's the magic wand tool. So got that selected. And just make sure that your settings look like mine, that this singular square is highlighted. You don't want any of these other options highlighted. You want this one highlighted, and all of this should look the same as mine. Make sure that you have your layer selected. Otherwise, Photoshop won't know which layer you're talking about. So we're talking about this layer, magic wand tool selected. So your cursor should look like mine, like a little crosshairs. And I'm just going to left click once. And what that does is it selects everything that is white. So that's why it's really important to pick a simple graphic, black and white. Just keep it really simple for your first try at this. And now that all of these are selected, all of this white space is selected, and I can tell because it's got the little marching ants around. That means I can delete this. So you could hit delete or backspace on your keyboard. And you can see now my white background changes to a black and gray checkerboard. All right, so we've got our graphic. To stop the marching ants, I'm just going to go select, deselect. And now I'm going to export this layer as my graphic. So I'm going to File, Export, Export As. And I want to make sure that I'm changing format to PNG. Make sure transparency is checked on. If you don't do this, all the background deleting we just did will be saved over. So, you won't be able to use your file. So make sure this is changed to PNG. Transparency is checked on. And you're doing it right when you see the the gray and white checkerboard. So I'm going to hit export, and we're just going to hit OK. Not bothered by that. It's going to ask where we want to save it. And we are exporting this as a PNG, yep. And I'm just going to call this Jumpman graphic. You can name this whatever you'd like. Just something to signal to you that this is the one without the background. So you can call it icon, no background, whatever you want. Okay, so now that we have our graphic, let's go back to our original guy here, original layer. I'm going to click the eyeball icon. Well, you won't see it, but you click this little blank box next to it. Now the eyeball means that this layer is visible. Okay, so remember making a copy, right click, duplicate layer. And we're going to call this displacement. I'm going to Click OK or hit enter on my keyboard. All right, I'm going to go back to my original Jumpman and I'm going to click this little lock icon just so I don't accidentally select it and do something to it. And I'm going to hide it by clicking the eyeball. Now select your displacement layer in your layers panel. And now we have to invert this. So we have to change everything that was white to black and all the black ink to white. The easiest way to do that is going to image up here at the top, adjustments, invert. On my keyboard, the shortcut is Control-I. You might have Command-I if you're on a Mac. Okay, so we've inverted. What this is going to do is tell CLO that everything that is black is going to be flat. Everything that is white is going to have a raised texture. But we can't go from black to white. We have to add some gray values. And so that's why we add the blur. So we go, this is selected. I'm going to go Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. We're just going to experiment here. I'm zooming out because I can't see how blurry my edges are. So I'm just going to, if you just click in here, it gives you, your cursor switches to the little hand. And I'm just going to zoom in so that I can see a good selection of the edge here of my graphic. And, you know, this is going to be different for everybody depending on your graphic. I'm just going to start here. So I'm going to click OK. All right, so I've got my displacement. Now I need to export this. So I'm going to go File, Export, Export As. And when my window opens, we're going to go up here. You might have PNG selected, and honestly, because we didn't delete anything, there's no transparency on your image. So you can use PNG, but just to be consistent, I'm going to be consistent with our tutorials. I mean, I'm going to stay with JPEG for my displacement map. But your graphics, remember, those can only be PNG files, okay? Because your graphics require transparency, all right? So my displacement can be a JPEG. So I'm going to hit export. I'm not going to change anything. Again, your values might be totally different than mine. That's totally fine. We can't make any changes to the size of this until we get into CLO. So just don't touch anything here. Just make sure you're saving the correct format. So I'm going to hit export. We're just going to hit OK. And then we'll just save this. And I'm going to call this Jumpman. I'm going to save over an old file. I'm going to click export. You can name this whatever. It's asking, do I want to replace it? I'm saying yes because I'm saving over an old file. You will probably just be able to type in a name and save. Okay, so we've got our graphic, we've got our displacement. Okay, so let's jump back into CLO. Now let's grab our graphic tool. So it looks like a t-shirt with a little checkerboard. You've got one on your 3D window, you've got one on your 2D window. Click it, this window opens up. You're looking for your graphic, so that's the one without any background. All right, so I'm going to click my file and then I'm going to hit open. All right, so now it's saying on my cursor, click a pattern to add a graphic. So I'm just clicking my bodice. And I'm not going to make any changes. You can see that it's going to load really large. I'm just going to hit OK. We'll work with the size later. Do not change the size right now. So click OK. All right, so my graphic is there. I was working with this earlier. I'm just going to delete this extra one. So just make sure, and because you just added your graphic, you're already going to be in your graphics tab on your object browser. But in case you can't find it or you need to step away from CLO for the day or whatever, if you need to go back to your graphic, your tab is right here. It's the little checkerboard. We're usually in the fabrics tab for this class, but this week we're working with graphics, so you'll be in graphics. Okay, so I can't make any changes to my graphic until I select it. So there's nothing in my property editor until I select it here in the object browser. So I'm clicking this bar here that says my graphics file name. And now everything that I can change about my graphic is in my property editor. So I'm going to look for displacement map. It's going to be under material in the blue text, and just scroll down to about halfway on my screen, displacement map. And if you click these little this four square icon, the gallery icon, it'll give you the option to select it. So hunt for wherever it is on your computer. On mine, that is right here. And I'm going to click open. And you know you did it right when you see a little mini version of it right here. Okay, we still haven't added depth or any raised texture to this yet. So let's keep optimizing this before we open the render window. I'm going to change the type of my graphic. Right now it's on a matte fabric setting. I'm going to change this to, I'm trying to mimic like a plastisol print. So I'm going to use plastic to see how that looks. So you could tell already it gives it a little sheen, and it'll just make it a little easier to differentiate from the shirt. Now under particle, so I'm under displacement map, and I'm adjusting the particle distance for my displacement map only. Okay, so there's different particle distances and, various features. Make sure you're in displacement map. You want the particle distance under displacement map, and you're going to change that. I'm going to go to 1. If that's making your computer super slow, try 2. Okay, so 1, enter. Now I'm ready to make some size adjustments if I want. So you'll already be in the transform graphic tool, but just in case you're not, you need to be in it in order to make your edits. And you can work, again, 3D window, 2D window. I'm just going to left click once on my graphic to get my gizmo. And now I can resize it however I want. I can move the logo, adjust the placement. I'm going to start here. I'm going to also zoom in so that I can get a better view of what's going on here. And I'm kind of I want to look at this at an angle. That way when this hopefully has dimension, I can see how much it is, how much it's raised off the surface of the t-shirt, and make adjustments as necessary. So now I'm going to go to my render engine, my render window, and I open that by going to the top of my CLO window. At kind of in the middle of all these headings, you'll see render, and click render, the first option. That opens my render window, and yours might open to a black screen that says click here for interactive render. Since I've been working with CLO this morning, mine's already kind of loaded. So I'm just going to hit reset here. And what that's going to do is it's going to make my render window look like my 3D window. All right, so that's getting started. I'm going to hit stop for just a second. I'm going to click my graphic line up here, and we need to add some depth. So under Displacement Map, remember, you're not going to be able to edit these settings until you select this here in your object browser. Go to Displacement Map, go to Amount, and we're going to change that. I'm going to try 5. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to hit Enter. Now on my render window, I'm going to hit this, actually, I'm going to refresh here. Let me see if I can make this. I think I did this in the wrong. I should have made this bigger and then reset, but we'll see. I think it's going to beep at me. Okay, no, it didn't. All right, so I just made this. This is my fit and view button. And we're just going to see how this is looking. So it looks like it's coming through. And again, my plastic setting that I add kind of just makes it a little easier to differentiate how much depth is really going on here. Looks all right. Let me do kind of a front view. I can stop this, refresh. And I don't want this video to be so crazy long, so I'm going to pause this and then I'll come back once this is fully refreshed. All right, so it's been a few minutes and looks like this is done baking as far as it will go. I'm not too mad at it. It's all right. You know, we can kind of see if we can get a better angle to see the depth, but that's looking pretty realistic. So if I wanted to, just because I want to explain kind of what, let me just stop this before I start talking. Just to show you kind of what these tools do, or what these settings do, not tools. I'm going to be a little dramatic here, and I'm going to go to 9, hit enter. This won't update until I click update here. And that'll update. It's going to shrink my image, and then I'll just fit it to window in a second. So I'm going to fit to window, clicking this little guy here. Okay, so you see this is a heavy duty, high density print. And like I said, I added way more depth than I probably need because I just want to illustrate what happens when I adjust these. And let me try something. Oh, I'll show you how to change I'll show you how to change the color of this in a second, but let me just adjust this here. So we've got a pretty good idea. I'm not going to let it finish baking. We can kind of see. So this is way off the surface of my shirt in a dramatic way. But if we adjust shift, what that's going to do is it's going to keep this graphic the same thickness. But shift is going to just push it into the base of the base fabric. So into the fabric more. So it's going to stay the same thickness, but when we shift it into the fabric, it could potentially clean up your graphic a little more, depending on what your graphic is. Sometimes you don't need to use shift, sometimes you do. I'm going to try minus, let's try 0.5, and let's see how that works. I'm going to hit enter. And let me refresh here. So again, what that's going to do is it's going to take, like if this is my graphic and I'm just going to sink it into the fabric a little more. We're seeing if this looks any better than not using shift at all. So I'm going to enlarge this. Maybe that isn't drastic enough, so I'm going to click my graphic here. Now I can adjust shift. Minus, let's try -2, see what that does. I'm going to refresh. And I'll come back after it's finished reloading. Okay, not too bad. If I move to the front view, let's see what that looks like here. And I'm still getting a lot of decent definition. Maybe I can push this into the shirt a little more, so I'm going to hit stop. Maybe I'm going to decrease the amount. I'll go to 7 and I'll go -1, enter, refresh. We'll see what this looks like in a second. So I'm going to pause my recording and come back after this is done reloading. Awesome. So I'm pretty happy with this. In case you might be wondering, how do I go about changing the color of my little logo? I will show you. So again, make sure you have your graphic selected. It's in your object browser. And you're going to, under material, base color, kind of like changing the color on fabric. We're going to go here, click here. If it lets us. Oh, you know what? Let me see. I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to hit stop here so it just stops. Need to desaturate. I could click switch or desaturate. Let me just do desaturate the long way. Click color. So you can see this is desaturated. And now color. If you click the letters, you're going to have to input the letters to the specific color, but if you click the chip, it'll open up your chips. So you can change this to any color. Let's say maybe I want a blue. All right, apply and close. Refresh here. So that will update what's going on here. So now I've got a blue logo. So let me just pull this back up. So I'm going to give this a minute to refresh, and then I'll show you how to take screenshots. Okay, so super important for your assignment, make sure that you save an image of your render window showing that you were able to successfully add some depth to your graphic. So I'm going to go over here. Let's see. Hovering so the name shows up. Copy current image. Save current image. So it's this one that looks like a little window with a camera. So click that. All right, so that's going to open this save image file. And I'm just going to go to where I've been saving my stuff, save it wherever. And I'm just going to call this fabric detail or graphic detail shot, something like that. I'll call this Jumpman. How about that? To be consistent. Jumpman detail. And actually, will help if I go to the right folder here. All right, Jumpman detail, there we go. Save this. Okay, so that's saved. If you needed to, for whatever reason, you can toggle back to your pattern window here down at the bottom, so you can toggle between them, between these two. I'm going to close the render window, and I'm just going to zoom out so you can, I want to just provide a screenshot just so you can see kind of what this looks like from a front view, see the scale. So from here, I'm just going to save a plain old snapshot. So we'll go File, Snapshot, 3D window. And that's going to open up. I'm going to go to my folder where I've been saving all my stuff. All right, and I'm going to call this Jumpman. Jumpman, there we go. Jumpman. I'll just leave it like that. Okay, hit save. Snapshot, I'm just gonna, maybe I'll just bump this up to 100. Everything, I'll just leave it like this. Click save. All right, so that is how you will save your files. So at the end of this, you're gonna supply a couple of things for this assignment. You're gonna show the detail shot. Want to see a close-up of the graphic. So where is that loading? It's loading on another screen here, stand by. All right, so I want to see the close-up of the graphic rendered in your render window. I want to see the original graphic that you started with, your PNG, so that you will add this to your discussion response. So again, these are loading so slowly on another screen. Let me just pull this up. So you can barely see it, but in your discussion response, this will load all how we want it. So this is my graphic, no background. So this is the PNG. Then you're gonna also give me the displacement map. So you're gonna embed all of these images into your response. The displacement map. Remember, our displacement map is the inverted version of our graphic. So my graphic was black and white, or black and transparent now. And my displacement is going to be the fuzzy version of that, but the inverted version. So my graphic is white with a black background. All right. And then that is part 1 of the assignment. So you will work on part 2 of the assignment, which is creating a fabric that has a raised texture.